I whispered to my sister, "I don't love Ryan anymore." Then I saw him standing in the doorway, silent and hurt. Let me tell you how one careless confession turned my world upside down. I recall that moment as if it were unfolding right before my eyes. My name is Ashley, I'm 32 years old, and truthfully, I'm at a loss for what I was thinking. I found myself in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken words, as I engaged in a tense conversation with my sister Ashley Brooke about a topic that lingered dangerously close to the edge of discretion. Have you ever found yourself pouring out your thoughts, only to later feel the weight of regret for not holding back? Indeed, that's who I am. I never intended for him to catch my words, yet perhaps buried within me, there was a part that relished the risk, a part that whispered I didn't truly mind the volume of my voice. I confided in Ashley Brooke that if given the chance to relive those moments, I would choose not to be with Ryan, my husband. I uttered those words so casually, as if it were merely a trivial matter, as though I were discussing a regrettable haircut rather than the man I vowed to share my life with. I can't comprehend why those words escaped my lips. Perhaps it was a sense of ennui that gripped me, or perhaps I was simply yearning for her compassion. Ryan stood there, seemingly innocent, yet the air crackled with unspoken tension. He was in the other room, lost in the glow of his phone, just as he always did to escape the weight of the day, the silence thick with unspoken words and unresolved tension. But I uttered those words, and then an oppressive silence enveloped me. It was not the silence of Ashley Brooke that spoke volumes. She has grown accustomed to my intense emotional eruptions. The silence enveloped them, thick and suffocating, as if the very air had transformed, charged with an unspoken weight. I slowly turned my head, just enough to catch a glimpse of him looming in the doorway. Silence hung heavily in the air, his lips sealed, words trapped within him. He remained silent, his gaze unwavering, devoid of any fury or demand for an explanation. He locked his gaze on me for a fleeting moment, the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. His expression remained unreadable as he turned and exited the room, leaving a heavy silence in his wake. The echo of the front door slamming shut sent a wave of nausea coursing through me. What just happened took me completely by surprise. Honestly, I expected him to lash out, or at the very least, show some anger. But to walk away? That was completely out of character for him. Ryan has always been the steady presence, the one who embodies patience, the anchor that tempers my, shall we say, intensity. I never imagined he would truly walk away, yet here we are. I never claimed to hate him, nor did I ever suggest I would walk away. It was merely an outlet, wasn't it? Isn't that what people do with their sisters, caught in the web of unspoken bonds and lingering emotions? You utter words that betray your true feelings, knowing they understand the weight behind them. They are meant to. Ashley Brooke stood frozen, words escaping her grasp, as uncertainty enveloped her. Her gaze locked onto mine, eyes wide with disbelief, as if the weight of my words hung heavily in the air between us. Yet, rather than owning my mistake, I chose to dig in my heels. I forced a laugh, dismissing the worry. "He'll be fine," I said, but doubt gnawed at me. "He's simply indulging in theatrics." Regret washes over me as I replay those words in my mind, questioning the very essence of my decision. Perhaps the reason lies in the fear that acknowledging my mistake would force me to confront the suffocating weight of guilt, a burden I was not prepared to bear at that moment. Time stretched endlessly, and he remained absent. I reached out to him, my heart racing as the phone rang unanswered. Desperation clawed at me, so I sent a text, hoping for a reply that might never come. "Are you all right?" Silence hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as the weight of unspoken words lingered between them. "Very well," I mused. If he chose to sulk, that was his burden to bear. I refused to lower myself to pleading for his return over something that hardly mattered. But as the night deepened, a tumultuous surge of anger and panic began to grip me.
Au coup des abandons modères, Allen waiting?
But also, where on earth could he possibly be? Was he attempting to impart some profound lesson, or was there something more sinister at play? I lingered in the shadows of the night, lost in the endless scroll of TikTok, all the while feigning indifference as I awaited his return, heart pounding with each passing moment, hoping for the sound of the door creaking open. He simply didn't. As I finally slipped into bed, a wave of annoyance washed over me, consuming my thoughts. I convinced myself he would return when the time was right, and that I wouldn't let it.
Keep me awake at night.
Believe me, I absolutely did. The following morning, his side of the bed remained hauntingly vacant. His toothbrush lingered in the bathroom, a silent reminder of what once was. His shoe remains by the door, a haunting reminder that he hasn't truly packed up and vanished forever. Yet, an unsettling sensation clung to me, refusing to let go. I reached out to him once more.
Where are you hiding?
We need to talk.
Silence linger, et vie oppressive.
At this moment, a deep sense of unease began to creep in. Not out of remorse, but from the sting of being overlooked. The weight of silence is unbearable for me, it gnaws at my very core. If a problem arises, I must confront it, dissect it, and find a way to move forward. But Ryan, he's the type to let things simmer, and it absolutely drives me to the edge. I confided in Ashley Brooke, and her response was laced with uncertainty. Maybe you should apologize.
Apologize? For what purpose? For the sake of honesty?
To express the whirlwind of emotions I was experiencing at that very moment? Why should I be forced to beg for forgiveness simply because he eavesdropped on a conversation that was never meant for his ears? He had no right to be listening in, I insisted, grappling with the truth more for my own sake than for hers. Yet, as the words escaped their lips, a profound emptiness lingered in the air. As the day dragged on, a simmering irritation began to take hold of me. Who does he think he is, putting me through this kind of stress? If he truly had an issue with my words, he could have chosen to confront me directly, engaging in a mature conversation instead of walking away. Instead he fled, abandoning me to bear the weight of guilt alone. Perhaps I am the villain in this story. Yet, I can't shake the feeling that my words, though honest, cut deeper than I intended. There are moments when I can't help but question whether my life would have been brighter had we never crossed paths. That doesn't mean I don't love him. Isn't that so? Yet, despite my efforts to reassure myself of my righteousness, a nagging doubt crept in, whispering that perhaps, just perhaps, I had crossed a line this time. Ryan has always been the type of person who allows me to take charge, who follows my lead without hesitation, even when I can sense his silent dissent. It seems I had begun to overlook its significance. I had always believed he would stand by me, through every storm that came our way. But now, for the first time, uncertainty gripped me like a vice. The hours dragged on, each tick of the clock amplifying the silence, and still, no word from him. I reached out to his mom, but she too was in the dark, having not heard from him at all. It was at that moment that a deep sense of unease began to wash over me. What if his anger ran deeper than anyone could imagine? What if something terrible had befallen him? Yet, one must wonder if Ryan's steadfast nature could falter in the face of overwhelming pressure. In truth, he stands as the most predictable figure in my life, a constant in a world of uncertainty. That's what makes him infuriating at times.
A darkness fell, I found myself spiraling deeper into chaos.
Confusion gripped me as I wrestled with a storm of emotions, anger, anxiety, and a desperate urge to let it all go. My fingers hovered over the screen, torn between the urge to reach out and the fear of appearing needy. Instead, I found myself frozen, eyes glued to my phone, heart racing with each passing second, desperately longing for a message that would never arrive. The next day arrived, heavy with uncertainty, and Ryan remained absent, leaving a void that echoed with unanswered questions. I urged myself to remain composed, yet with each sound of a car passing by, my heart raced uncontrollably. I found myself obsessively checking my phone, refreshing my texts over and over, convinced that I had somehow overlooked his reply, my heart racing with each passing moment. Silence, an overwhelming void of unspoken thoughts. At this moment, my frustration was consuming me. Who would even dare to do such a thing? who just walks away without a word to their wife about where they're headed. It was undeniably immature, without a doubt. But then, as I sat there, my gaze fixed on the swirling depths of my coffee, a sudden realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. What if he had truly reached the end of his rope this time? What if I had finally driven him to the edge, crossing a line that could never be uncrossed? The thought clung to me like a shadow, unwelcome yet persistent, refusing to be dismissed no matter how hard I tried to shake it off. Ryan had never been this way before. He avoided the cold silence and the allure of women. If he was truly gone, there had to be a reason, one that loomed larger than I was willing to confront. Just as the clock struck noon, Ashley Brooks' call pierced through the silence, a sudden reminder of the weight of the moment. "Have you received any word from him yet?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as if she feared the slightest sound might send me reeling. "No," I snapped, "and honestly, it's utterly absurd. He's the one turning this into a monumental issue, not me." "Linz," she said with a weighty pause, "you sort of turned this into a monumental issue from the start." Every fiber of my being screamed to end the call, to sever the connection between us. "You were meant to stand with me," I said, my voice trembling with a mix of betrayal and desperation. Yet, as the words escaped my lips, a sharp pang of guilt pierced through me. She was not mistaken, not completely. Perhaps I had blown it out of proportion, but it wasn't as if I had intended to cause him pain. I never imagined he would react so intensely. I never revealed that I was planning to leave, nor did I confess that my love for him had faded. People unleash their frustrations constantly. He was simply overreacting. As the evening shadows deepened, a sense of urgency gripped me. I could no longer afford to linger in uncertainty. If he refused to return on his own, I would stop at nothing to track him down. I reached out to his mother once more, but the silence lingered. She still hadn't heard a word from him. I reached out to a few of his friends as well. Yet, it seemed either they were shielding him from the truth, or they were utterly oblivious to the reality unfolding before them. One of them, Josh, reacted with a palpable shock when I inquired if Ryan had reached out.
"Is everything all right between you two?"
he asked, and I struggled to suppress the fierce impulse to lash out at him. "Yeah, fine," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just making sure." After that, I found myself driving aimlessly for an hour, lost in a haze of uncertainty about where to turn next. Ryan was never the kind to linger in bars or silently take refuge on a friend's couch. He was unwavering, a constant presence in an unpredictable world. Where on earth could he possibly be? As I stepped through the door, an unsettling silence enveloped me. He was still nowhere to be found. His toothbrush, his shoes, lingered like haunting specters, a painful reminder that he should have been there. I lingered in the kitchen, time stretching endlessly as I fixated on the front door, my heart pounding with a desperate hope for it to swing open. Yet, it remained unyielding. The silence of the house was suffocating, and I loathed every moment of it. I began to scroll through our bank account, driven by a mix of curiosity and a desperate need to grasp at something tangible amidst the chaos. In that moment, it came into view. A hotel charge that ignited earlier that day. He was alone, devoid of his mother's comforting presence, a friend's reassuring company, or heaven help him, anyone else at all. He found himself in a hotel, utterly alone. Conflicting emotions surged within me, leaving me torn between relief and a simmering fury. So he was fine, at least for now. Yet there he was, cloaked in shadows at some hotel, evading my presence, as if I were unworthy of his words.
The audacity.
I rushed to call the hotel without a moment's hesitation. I find myself at a loss, uncertain of the words I would have uttered if he had answered the call. Yet it was all in vain, for the desk clerk remained tight-lipped, offering no confirmation whatsoever. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she said, her voice dripping with a feigned politeness, "but I cannot reveal any details about our guests." A primal urge surged within me, desperate to break free in a cacophony of raw emotion. Instead, I abruptly ended the call and began furiously typing out another message. I know where you are, I wrote, my fingers trembling with urgency. Why must you persist in this childish behavior? Just come home so we can finally have a conversation. My eyes lingered on the message, heart racing, before I finally summoned the strength to erase it. If he chooses to cower in fear, so be it. I refused to lower myself to begging. Yet, the knot in my stomach persisted, refusing to loosen its grip. This feeling consumed me, a suffocating sense of helplessness, as if he held all the power in his grasp. Ryan was meant to be the one who pursued me, who offered forgiveness, who listened to my outbursts, and then walked away. It has always unfolded this way. What was going wrong this time?
The next morning, he awoke to the haunting silence of anti-ao sens mort.
It was beginning to weigh heavily on my mind.
The heavy silence, the agonizing uncertainty.
I struggled to concentrate on my work, yet each email pierced through the haze, a relentless reminder of the looming crisis that demanded my attention. My husband was gone, leaving me in a whirlwind of uncertainty and despair, grappling with the weight of my next steps. I repeatedly reassured myself that it wasn't as grave as it seemed, that he merely required some distance. Yet, with each passing moment of his absence, doubt gnawed at my resolve, making it increasingly difficult to hold on to that belief. As the clock ticked towards mid-afternoon, a suffocating weight settled in my chest, and I felt the breaking point drawing near. I drove to the hotel, consumed by a sense of urgency that overshadowed any concern for how it might appear to others. If he refused to come to me, then I would take matters into my own hands and seek him out. As I arrived, the clerk launched into the familiar routine about privacy, and I struggled to suppress the overwhelming desire to erupt in chaos. "He's my husband," I snapped, the words laced with urgency, but she merely offered that insincere customer service smile and replied, "I'm sorry, ma'am." With a heavy heart, I trudged back to my car, each step echoing my sense of defeat. As I sat there, my gaze fixed on the steering wheel, a surge of emotions washed over me. Feelings I had buried deep for far too long began to claw their way to the surface.
Paralyzing dread.
What if he never returned? What if I had truly crossed the line with him this time? And what if, buried within me, I understood it wasn't merely about the words I'd spoken to Danny? This was not the first instance where my words had raced ahead of my better judgment, nor the first time I had prioritized my own emotions over his. Perhaps this time, he had reached his breaking point. Yet, despite the turmoil within me, I found myself grappling with the undeniable truth. I was not prepared to utter those words of remorse. Not yet. The weight of anticipation hangs heavy in the air. I had to find him first, to ensure he was all right, to devise a plan that would turn the situation to my advantage. After all, I've always had a knack for weaving my words into a lifeline when chaos looms. And this? This was yet another chaotic disaster. Isn't that so? The anticipation hung heavy in the air as I realized I wouldn't have to endure the wait much longer to see Ryan, especially after the disappointment of my failed attempt at the hotel. As the clock ticked into the late hours of the evening, the front door creaked open, revealing him at last. He closed the door quietly, his keys slipping from his fingers with a soft clatter, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside him. He entered with an unsettling calmness, a veneer that masked the storm beneath, leaving me unable to decipher the emotions swirling in his eyes. His blank expression sent a chill down my spine. I stood on the brink, poised for a confrontation, craving nothing less than a powerful reaction. Yet this was unbearable. He placed his bag by the couch, lingering in the doorway, his gaze piercing through the silence as if weighing the gravity of his next words. For a fleeting moment, I believed he would ascend the stairs in silence, leaving everything unsaid. Yet, in that moment, he chose to speak. "We need to talk," he said, his voice unwavering, carrying an icy edge.
"Yeah, no kidding." He shot back, my arms crossing tightly over my chest, a storm brewing within me.
Defensiveness gripped me, a storm brewing inside. Even as the truth loomed over me, I was the one who should have taken the first step to apologize. Yet, that was not where I intended to begin. I was unable to do it. It was as if acknowledging my mistake would hand him a weapon to wield against me, and I was far from prepared to surrender that kind of control. He sank into the couch, his gesture beckoning me to join him, the air thick with unspoken words. I remained upright, propped against the kitchen counter, feigning indifference as if my world was too chaotic to notice. Are you really going to leave me hanging without an explanation for why you vanished for 2 whole days? I asked, attempting to maintain a casual tone, yet my voice sliced through the air, sharper than I had hoped. Ryan let out a heavy sigh, his hands rubbing together in a desperate attempt to summon warmth. I needed space, he confessed, his voice heavy with unspoken weight. To contemplate. How can I possibly find the words to speak to you after everything I've just learned? I let out a heavy sigh, my eyes narrowing in disbelief.
Oh, please, Ryan.
Is this truly happening?
You cooked a fleeting whisper.
What I confided in my sister was meant to stay between us, yet here you are, treating it as if the sky is falling. It wasn't merely a single issue, Ashley, he said, his voice escalating just enough to betray his agitation, though he swiftly tempered it.
You promised me you would never date me again.
If given the chance to turn back time, you would never select me. Perhaps I wouldn't, after all. I fired back, the words escaping my lips before I even had a chance to rein them in. The words lingered, heavy and suffocating, and in that fleeting moment, a wave of regret washed over me. But then I committed fully.
You've transformed, Ryan.
We both understand the weight of this truth. You've changed so much since the day we said.
Ido.
I found myself caught in a moment of uncertainty, each word weighing heavily on my mind, yet the surge of my emotions overwhelmed my restraint. You've become more complacent, haven't you? You've completely lost control of yourself. You've completely given up, haven't you?
Is it truly fair to hold me accountable for this feeling?
He gazed at me, and in that moment, I witnessed a profound pain reflected in his eyes. Yet, rather than erupting in fury, he merely nodded slowly, as if this moment had been anticipated all along. Is that really all there is? He whispered, his voice barely breaking the silence. You believe I'm unworthy, that my appearance repulses you, and that's the reason you choose to distance yourself from me. I rolled my eyes once more, desperately attempting to shake off the heavy burden of my own words. Do not distort what I have said. I never claimed that I didn't want to be with you. I confessed that if given the chance to turn back time, I would have chosen a different path. That is not the same at all. It certainly resonates with me, he replied, his voice unwavering yet resolute. And do you realize what that means?
Perhaps you hold the truth.
I have transformed. Time has passed, and I feel the weight of the years upon me. I find myself carrying a bit more weight than before. I find myself sinking into a false sense of security. But that's the reality you face when you're married, Ashley. You find yourselves entwined in the complexities of shared existence. You construct a world. Or at least, that's what I believed we were embarking on. My cheeks burned, a tumultuous blend of humiliation and fury surging within me. Don't make this about me, I exclaimed, my voice trembling with intensity. Do you really believe I haven't seen the growing chasm between us? Why is it that our conversations have dwindled to nothing more than work, bills, or what's for dinner? It feels like we're drifting apart, and I can't help but wonder where the connection went. Your words are doing little to ignite any spark of excitement for this marriage, Ryan.
So this is my for now?
He asked, his voice steady yet laced with disbelief. Am I the cause of your unhappiness? Why is it that you lack the respect to keep a conversation like that, between you and your sister, away from my ears?
Il reste de maille en exaspération, a wave of deeper washing over me. You're distorting the truth in every possible way.
I'm just saying if you could muster a bit more effort, hit the gym, and reignite that spark of interest you once had for me, perhaps I wouldn't be drowning in these feelings. His gaze lingered on me, heavy with unspoken words. And then he took an action that completely caught me off guard. He rose deliberately, his gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that sent a shiver down my spine. "Do you really want to know, Ashley? This reveals far more about your character than it does about mine." "What on earth does that mean?" A wave of panic crashed over me, and I snapped, the tension in the air thickening around us. He was silent, but the weight of his unspoken words hung heavily in the air. He was not resisting in the manner I had anticipated. His calmness enveloped me, intensifying my sense of insignificance. "It means," he said, his voice unwavering, "that you fail to recognize the value of what you possess. There's a presence in your life, steadfast and unwavering, standing by you through every reckless choice, every financial misstep, every high and low you faced. A person who has stood by you, unwavering, through every moment, never casting a shadow of judgment upon you. And rather than recognizing that, you seek out ways to undermine me."
Il partait de my lips, ready to unleash the word that trembled on the edge of my tongue.
Yet, he had more to reveal. "I am acutely aware of my imperfections. I am acutely aware of the transformation within me. But you have too, Ashley. And not in a way that alleviates the struggles of this marriage. You've transformed into a person who evades responsibility, who strikes out in anger rather than engaging in a genuine dialogue, and who would choose to cast blame upon me rather than confront their own reflection." His words struck me with the force of a sudden blow. Yet, rather than acknowledging the possibility of his truth, I struck out once more, fueled by a tempest of emotions. "Oh, so now you've achieved perfection? The saint who has been tirelessly holding this marriage together, while I am the source of the turmoil." He shook his head, a storm of emotions swirling within him as he grasped his bag once more.
"No, I am far from perfect.
But I'm fighting to become a better person, Ashley. I refuse to remain in this place any longer, allowing you to diminish my worth. If you can no longer recognize my worth, perhaps it's time for us to reconsider our path forward." I stood paralyzed. "What are you trying to convey?" "I need more than this," he said, his hand slicing through the air between us, the weight of his words hanging heavily in the silence. "And if you're unwilling to put in the effort, perhaps my place here is no longer justified." He remained silent. He left without slamming the door behind him. He turned and walked away, leaving me frozen in place, a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief swirling within me. In the weeks that followed, the weight of reality crashed down upon me with relentless force. Ryan never returned, leaving even his mail behind. Each time I stepped into the house, the weight of the emptiness pressed down on me, suffocating and relentless. His absence was more than just a physical void. The silence hung heavy in the air, a void left by his absence that pierced through the heart with an agonizing intensity. I began to reach out to him more, cautiously probing the depths of our connection. The responses I received were courteous yet cold, leaving an unsettling void between us.
"Are you holding up all right?"
"This weekend, I will come by to collect my belongings." That was the moment.
Chilling silence, en impénétrable barrière tout dialogue.
He wasn't unkind, yet the finality in his demeanor spoke volumes. The walls he had built around his heart were unmistakable, signaling an end to the openness we once shared. The weekend arrived, and a wave of dread washed over me at the thought of facing him. As he stepped through the threshold, an unsettling change enveloped him. His shoulders appeared more imposing, his posture exuding an undeniable confidence. He had meticulously trimmed his beard, and the transformation was striking.
Sharp, deliberate.
He carried a new scent, an unfamiliar cologne that hinted at change, stirring something deep within me. It pained me to acknowledge the truth, but there he stood, more striking than I had ever seen him in years. "Hey," I said, my voice trembling slightly, as I stood by the kitchen counter, heart racing, watching him step through the door. "Hey," he replied, his nod barely a flicker, leaving an unsettling silence hanging between us. He completely ignored my presence, offering no inquiry into my well-being, no attempt at casual conversation. He stormed into the bedroom, urgency driving him as he began to shove his belongings into boxes, each item a reminder of what was slipping away. I trailed behind him, a storm of uncertainty swirling within me, aching to shatter the oppressive silence that hung between us. Ryan, we need to talk.
He inquired, my voice barely above a whisper.
He continued to pack, each movement heavy with unspoken words. What are we talking about?
Ma hâte rascède à incertainty gripped me.
Our story unfolds here. He paused, his gaze piercing into me, an unreadable expression flickering across his face.
What about us, Ashley? Can you feel the weight of our unspoken word hanging in the air?
The silence stretches between us, thick with unresolved feelings and questions that linger like shadows. What are we really to each other in this moment? Your feelings are unmistakably evident. I didn't mean it like that, I said, urgency lacing my voice as I stepped closer.
A wave of dépeur washed over me.
I acted without considering the consequences. He shook his head, a storm of emotion swirling within him, and returned to the task of packing, each movement heavy with unspoken words. Absolutely not, Ashley, you were lost in thought. You truly believed I wouldn't catch wind of it. The lump in my throat tightened, a heavy weight of unspoken words and raw emotion. I never intended to cause you pain. But you did, he declared with unwavering intensity, finally locking his gaze onto mine. It goes far beyond that single exchange.
It's all-consuming.
Your words cut deep, your treatment stings. It feels as though I will never measure up to your expectations. Tears threatened to spill from my eyes, yet I battled against the tide of emotion, determined to maintain my composure.
He was mistaken.
I am acutely aware of that fact. Yet, there is still a chance to mend this. We've faced greater challenges, haven't we? He released a sharp, bitter laugh that echoed with unspoken pain. Have we truly? Because I fear we have never faced anything like this before, Ashley. I don't think I've ever experienced such profound disrespect, such unwelcome. But the most agonizing part? I remained. I persisted, despite your unmistakable indifference towards my efforts. The weight of that falls squarely on my shoulders. I allowed it to reach this point. His words struck with the force of a brutal blow, leaving a lingering ache in the depths of the soul. I felt the urge to confront him, to declare his mistake with fervor. Yet, I found myself unable to do so. Deep down, I felt the unsettling truth. He wasn't who he claimed to be. What does it even matter? Is that all there is? Are you really walking away from us? My voice trembled, and I loathed the raw desperation that seeped through. I won't back down, he declared, his voice unwavering, a storm.
Brewing beneath the surface. For once, I am putting myself first.
I refused to waste another moment seeking validation from someone blind to my value. I fixed my gaze on him, thoughts swirling chaotically within me. This was not the way it was meant to unfold. He was meant to forgive me, to assure me that we would navigate this storm side by side. Yet there he stood, composed and unwavering, as if the weight of his choice had already settled within him. I can change, I murmured, my voice trembling, barely escaping my lips. I will strive for more.
You will rise above this.
He let out a heavy sigh, the box slipping from his grasp and hitting the ground with a dull thud.
Ashley, it truly opudo.
Not for you, but for your own sake. But I refuse to be the one left in the shadows, waiting for you to find your way. For years, I have poured my heart into making you happy, yet all I receive in return is a torrent of criticism and a heavy weight of resentment. I am worthy of so much more. His words pierced deeper than I ever imagined they could. Tears cascaded down my cheeks, and for the first time, I allowed them to flow freely, unmasked and raw.
I can't bear the thought of losing you, he whispered, my voice trembling with raw emotion.
Ryan, please, we can make this right. He stared at me, the silence stretching between us, and in that fleeting instant, I could have sworn I glimpsed a spark of something deep within his gaze.
A sense of sorrow, perhaps, or a haunting remorse.
But then he violently shook his head, a storm of conflict brewing within him. I've already sacrificed too much of who I am in this relentless pursuit to mend what's broken, he murmured, his voice heavy with despair. I can't bear this any longer. He grasped the box tightly and stepped out of the room, abandoning me in a whirlwind of despair, my heart fracturing with each passing moment. My heart raced as I longed to run after him, to plead for him to remain, yet deep down, I understood it would change nothing. He was finished, and in that moment, a chilling realization washed over me, I might truly lose him forever. In the days that followed, I found myself desperately seeking any means to escape the turmoil within. I immersed myself in work, surrounded myself with friends, desperately seeking any distraction to escape the suffocating solitude of my home.
Yet, no matemai effort, the haunting antinesklung to my every step.
Ryan's absence was more than just a void, it felt as though he had ripped a part of my very soul away with him. 1 month later, our paths crossed once more. He sat alone at a coffee shop, tension crackling in the air as he shared a table with a woman whose face was unfamiliar to me. She was pretty, not stunning, yet there was an undeniable allure in her natural, effortless beauty that drew you in, leaving you captivated and yearning for more. They were laughing, but a shadow flickered across his face, hinting at an unspoken turmoil beneath his apparent happiness. He radiated a joy I hadn't witnessed in years. A surge of determination coursed through me, compelling me to stride over and shatter their fragile moment, to make it painfully clear that I was still his wife.
Yet, I chose not to.
I stood frozen, a mere spectator, burdened by the crushing weight of my own failures. This was entirely my doing. I had cast him aside, shattered his spirit, and now he was slipping away, forging a path without me. As his gaze met mine, a fleeting shadow crossed his face, the warmth of his smile dimming momentarily, yet his eyes held no trace of anger or distress. He offered a brief nod, a mere flicker of recognition, before turning his attention back to the conversation, leaving an unsettling silence in the air. It felt as though I had become nothing more than a fleeting memory to him, a shadow he had long since left behind. As I stepped out of the coffee shop, the heavy burden of my choices crashed down upon me, each decision echoing in the silence around me. In my relentless pursuit of his imperfections, I had lost sight of the profound gifts he was offering me, consumed by blame and criticism. And now, the moment had slipped away, irrevocably lost. In that moment, an overwhelming sense of isolation washed over me, unlike anything I had ever experienced before. And in that moment, a chilling clarity washed over me. It wasn't Ryan who had let me down. It was I.